All right, welcome again to podcast Affirmation. This is Mnikeni Phakathi. The show is called Intimate Sessions with Mnikeni Phakathi. We have an honor today of welcoming a face that has become famous and is getting loved by many. Very articulate, MEC Meyer, MEC for Public Works and Infrastructure in KwaZulu-Natal. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute honor being here with you today.
Yeah, great. No, please make sure viewers at home, please make sure you share your comments, your views about these shows, this podcast episode. Would appreciate your feedback. Please keep it clean, like we always say, keep it concise, keep it constructive. It's always helpful that way. Mr. Meyer. Martin, as they will call it.
Please do, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure you're comfortable with that. Some politicians would prefer it differently. Yeah, what planted this political seed in your life?
So I come from, I was very involved in human rights work from my university days already. Human rights is something I'm very, very passionate about. I turned 18 in 1995, the year after the national elections. So I grew my own political views in that time of change and excitement in South Africa, and I think that also really formed how my views are. Unfortunately, I can too vividly remember the bad days of apartheid, being a teenager and at the end of it, and then being very involved in human rights work, especially LGBTIQ rights on university, and then I got involved with Amnesty International and other human rights groups. And when I went back to university, studied social work, and I started working as a social worker. My first job as a social worker, my second one actually, was at a children's home for abused children. And I got so frustrated that the structures are not just there and the regulations are not helping, that I said, no, I can sit on the sidelines and complain, or I can get inside and get involved. At that time, I moved to Durban. I became a social worker at one of the hospitals here. And I took a year to study all the different political parties, see which party is the closest to what my values and views are. Because as a student, I belonged to another political party that we share power with now.
Was that the case?
Yes, I actually, my political career I was a member of the ANC as a student many years ago, a long time ago. I looked at the Democratic Alliance and said, this is the party that most aligned with my views, and I joined the Democratic Alliance in 2009. In 2011, they make me a candidate for councillor, and here I am. Quite a few years later in a different position, but still around.
Deputy Chairperson of the DA in the province.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes. Yeah.
That's an important leadership space for you. But most importantly, while we're discussing politics, for me it would be GPU. You've argued that you prefer coalition.
Yes.
Any day. Yeah. But do you think this one is sustainable? I know you've said it's stable. In your comments before. Is it sustainable?
Well, for the first few months, a lot of people ask me, is it going to last?
Yeah.
And I said, that's not a question, because it has to last.
It has to.
There is no other option. It has to. And I, as you said, I'm a firm believer in coalitions. I think coalition government is the ultimate form of multi-party democracy. And we see the world over where countries reach that stage, they have stable government, and it works because then you have checks and balances even within your executive. It puts in another thing in. And it strengthens us because we hear different views. For many years, 5 years in legislature previously, it was my job to tell the other party, no, you're wrong.
You're wrong, yeah.
Now we have to sit and actually listen to each other. So those suggestions I made 5 years ago that the then governing party said, no, we're not even listening to you. Now they're listening. And they said, this is actually not a bad idea. And I know that I'm inside, those things that I said, this is what you should do. Now I'm the guy responsible for implementing it. I'm like, oh, actually, it's not really implementable. So I think it helps us find that balance. So the question is not, is it sustainable? It definitely is sustainable. But we need people of KwaZulu-Natal to also understand that it will take some time. It is new for all of us. Sitting next to people who a few years ago was my vehement opponents in politics, and now we are colleagues. It takes us some time, but I really do think that the GPU is actually setting an example for the GNU to be honest.
Interesting.
Because the way we deal with conflict is a lot quicker.
Yeah.
We are smaller, of course. We don't have the big things, the issues they deal with there. But I do think the GPU, which was formed before the GNU, is setting a good example on how coalition government can and should work in South Africa.
Are we seeing the same? There's going to be local government the nearest future. Are we seeing a transfer of this established coalition maybe to that level?
You're going to see a lot of politicians in KZN get very grey before the local government elections, because it's dominating our internal discussions, I think, in all political parties. Because there's this new kid on the block that came in a tsunami wave, and we just don't know what's going to happen. We know they have their own internal struggles right now, so we don't even know what the strength of MK is going to be come local government elections. So it's very difficult for us to predict. And one thing we learned in the last election is that all the models, all the predictions were totally wrong. No one foresee what happened in KwaZulu-Natal, and that made it very difficult for us. Yeah. So yes, KwaZulu-Natal is already the province with the most coalitions in local government.
There's almost 50%.
Yes,
for the MK.
Party. My party is very famous for Mnikeni, where we govern outright, but we also have a deputy mayor in Umhlatuze, where we co-govern with the IFP. And then many other municipalities, especially in the Zululand area, are coalitions with IFP, NFP, EFF. Everybody's got a slice of the cake somewhere, So I think KZN is already leading the way in that, and I do foresee. Even eThekwini is a coalition government, and people forget that quite often. But the NFP as a deputy mayor, EFF chair is one of them. Also interesting is that KZN is the only province in the country that has an exco system in local government, not an executive mayor. So our mayors here are not as powerful as a mayor in Johannesburg or those places, because we have an exco, so we have a committee that's the executive. So if you take eThekwini, for instance, the DA's had 3 seats in the exco. So in essence, you're actually already part of government, even though you're not the governing party.
Part of the decisions.
Yeah. So that's why I think we also adapt quicker and
agree with them, but you are part of.
In the end of the day, that was a difficult thing sometimes for us, but and still we have 3 members of the executive here.
Okay. Okay. Outside of politics, you had a conference that is deemed to be a success.
Yeah.
And you were talking all things build KZN better. How did it go, and what we're looking at in terms of the future? Is this going to be an annual thing now?
So interestingly, let's start with that question. My initial idea was going to be once-off.
Yeah. Because
conferences, if you keep having them, it becomes sort of a thing. Then we realized, because yesterday's engagement was, I say to people that the first day is where we talk, the second day is where we listen, because government has become excellent at talking. We've become really bad at listening. So I want to create, in my department at least, a government that's listening. So that's what we did yesterday. And people said us a lot of things, their concerns, their suggestions, and then all said, we need to come back here next year. So it is something we'll look at. I think biannually is probably better, because these things also aren't cheap, and I'm responsible for the way we spend money in my department. It's your money that you're spending. Although we did this so cheaply that I'm very proud of what the team achieved. And what the purpose of it is that we own 10,800 buildings across the province. The national government owns quite a lot of parcels of land. Transnet, Sunroll, municipalities own a lot of land. And then even Kanyama Trust is a big landowner in KwaZulu-Natal. And we said, but not all this land, not all these buildings that we own is actually doing something for the people of KZN.
Yeah. There's no benefit.
There's no benefit for you. And it's your building. It's called public works for a reason, because it belongs to the public. So we wanted to bring in people from NGOs, NPOs, the private sector, investors, traditional leadership. And everyone together and says, all right, this is what we have. What do we need to do with it? Come with suggestions. Do we need to change the regulations so it's easier for you to work with us in these buildings? An example, for instance, is that we have over 300 schools that's standing empty, that's no longer being needed. These are mostly rural schools. These aren't big fancy buildings. It's very basic buildings. But they're standing empty. They're being vandalized. I have to provide security. That costs money. Yet we know there's a big shortage on skill centers. TVET colleges are not in deeply rural areas. So can we convert these into TVET areas? Can we convert these into places for NPOs? We're busy talking to COCTA and the traditional leadership, saying that not all traditional leaders have TACs, traditional authority courts. can we convert some of these schools to be courts and halls for the traditional leadership in the area?
Or what they would normally call one-stop shop.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're just saying, let's look differently. In eThekwini, we own a lot of buildings. We own an abandoned hotel called the Palm Beach Hotel. And it's like, okay, why is government owning a hotel? So let's look at this. What can we do with this hotel so it serves the people? Or if we can't use it to serve people, sell it.
If government is owning a hotel, is it part of the income? Do we see that maybe outlined as part of the income, like you would have tax and stuff? Is it part of that accounted for income in government?
So we pay a large amount of rates on it. So it's income for eThekwini. It's unfortunately a loss for us.
Okay.
And it's government's also not allowed to do commercial business. So we can't run hotels. That's not government's business. And we will do it badly. I can just imagine what it would be like if we run a hotel. We'll call it the Eskom Inn. But what we want to do is, we're talking to eThekwini, and what their plan for that hotel, for instance, is, because we're busy handing that building over to eThekwini, is they want to create that in something that's called a temporary emergency housing.
Okay.
So let's say there's a fire in an informal settlement. 100 people need to be moved somewhere temporarily. That's what that building will be for. So you can use them in there. They'll be safe, secure, while we sort out the crisis, and then they can move back to where they're from. So we're also looking at some of the other buildings like West Point Lodge, that's on the harbour, that to be looked into social housing, but mixed, so that some of the flats are to be put for sale, and you can apply for FLISP. The government helps you with your loan, and some of the flats will be pure out social housing where you rent it from government at a low cost, because there's not enough affordable housing in CBD. And then student housing is a big need.
That's an interesting one. You're talking about moving people to a building that would be earmarked for disasters and all that temporal shelter, as they call it. My experience is that it's very difficult to move them out of that building once you get them there.
But eThekwini has experience with that. eThekwini has experience with that. After the floods, there was a building in Ward 64, I can't remember the area right now, where they used an old Transnet building as that, and that worked quite well. So eThekwini does have the experience of it. We'll give them whatever support we can, but they'll be running it together with the Department of Human Settlements. They'll be managing all of that.
Yeah, you certainly need that kind of partnership.
Absolutely.
Going back to the conference, I know it's early days, but are there any deals that have been concluded or started at this point?
Let me start off, because I saw some of the comments on social media as well. No brown envelopes were allowed at my conference, and I told people, if you brought a brown envelope, you're at the wrong conference, wrong hall. So what we discussed more is what needs to be done from our side, from a regulation side, and what needs to be done from the private sector side, so we can start making deals. I know specific deals were made, because that's definitely not the purpose. We still remain loyal to the processes, which is a tender process that we've really made a lot better, a lot more transparent. So that process still has to be followed. But one thing that's coming out of the conference is that this week we are putting, as a department, 133 properties out on the market across the province. That we listened to people yesterday, and we're going to continue with this program, and it's a very positive one. It's 7 abandoned buildings, and then I think about 108 empty parcels of land that we are putting up for sale. And with the abandoned buildings, we're asking for expression of public interest. So we're not saying we want this to happen with the building. We're saying to the public out there, come with suggestions, come with real
be involved
proposals. Cost, a professional proposal, the cost, everything, and come to us as a bid. And then we look, must we lease it to you? We can lease it to you for 99 years or 25 years or whatever the case might be. Or do we need to sell it to you, or do we form a public-private partnership? So we're very excited about putting these properties on, because one of the big challenges of owning 10,800 properties is our rateable is 1.8 billion rand a year as a department that we pay in rates to municipalities. And also, because of financial difficulties, we're not paying them. We owe them a lot.
I would imagine.
I always joke, this joke's getting a bit old, I think, that I'm the biggest rate payer in KZN, and I'm the biggest rate defaulter in KZN. We've improved significantly in our payments, but we have to reduce our rates bill. We can't afford it. So seeing how we can use that differently. And then the other big crisis is we spent 1.2 billion rand on leases for government departments, but we own buildings. Yes, 1.2 billion rand a year on leases
Yeah.
for government departments in this province,
Yeah.
but we own buildings. That's a disaster. You know?
Yeah, as a defaulter, is that one of the reasons why your former HOD said we don't have money in the department when
Yes.
he introduced himself?
Yeah, absolutely. And the department, when I took office,
Yeah.
we were 800 million in a rate. We've got that down to 200 million.
Okay,
It still
yeah.
keeps me awake,
That's a huge step.
but it's a massive step in the right direction.
Right
you
direction,
know?
of course.
And but that's also why we're doing things like the Esplanade government building.
Mm.
Once that building is completed, we can move all those departments that we're currently leasing offices for in eThekwini into
Okay.
that building, stop paying leases, and that will save us hundreds of millions of rand a year.
We're looking forward to that. Of course, that building that you're talking about, you're an enthusiast when it comes to technology.
Yes.
You've shown that part. What new technology are you introducing into that building? Is it going to be a smart building? Are we going to see lights going off automatically and stuff like that?
Absolutely. That building is a totally green building,
Yeah.
with high grading for its green technology and smart building. Even the lift, when the lift goes down,
Yeah.
that energy gets converted into electricity and pumped into the system of the
That's
building. So even the lift itself is going to generate electricity for us.
electricity, yeah.
Solar panels, the whole roof is going to be solar paneled. The way they're building or rebuilding the building is going to be climate controlled, so we don't have to use air cons as much.
Okay.
So the whole building is going to be a totally new, modern way. We don't know government buildings like that in KZN,
Okay.
and I'm very, very excited about it.
Yeah. Talking of the use of technology, you in your department, you've as part of transparency introduced the use of technology when doing tenders, and of course you've done that 100% in your ministry.
Yeah.
As you have indicated in the past. Is that helping your department in terms of saving money and so on?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Before we instituted recording all our bid committee meetings
Yeah.
audibly and visually, almost every tender went to court.
Yeah.
So almost every tender, someone appealed, said, no, I'm unhappy, and it went to court.
So for as many years as the department has existed. Is that-
I would imagine so, yes. And then remember that once it goes to court, we can't continue with the project.
Yeah.
So then everything stops. So service delivery is halted, and it costs us a lot of money because
But
lawyers
money
aren't
still
cheap.
has to continue
Yes.
getting paid somehow.
Since we've instituted it,
Yeah.
not one appeal. We haven't seen it inside of court. I've seen it inside of court on labour issues, but not on tender issues
Yeah.
once. It is already really helping.
Yeah.
And I think also one of our main tasks that I said we need to underdo as a department is we had a terrible image out there. If
Yeah.
you tell people you work for public works and infrastructure, people are like, oh.
Yeah, especially at the time there was human settlements also.
Yes, or they'll tell you, listen, I've got an idea for a tender. you
Yeah.
know. Now, I told the people working for the department, I want you to be proud to work for this department. And I want the people of KwaZulu-Natal to be proud of this department.
Mm.
And by doing things like this, by saying, we are recording it. If you
Yeah.
have a query about a tender thing, come. We can sit down, we can watch the recording.
Yeah. So we're clear about what
we-
transpired.
Bad things happen in the light, or bad things happen in the dark. Good
Yeah.
things happen in the light. So we're going to shine a light on public works. And I think we're on a good track. I think when people now talk about public works, it's no longer in hushed tones and talking about us badly.
Yeah.
Steve wrote a wonderful line the other day where he said, we're no longer the poor cousin of government. We are now standing proud at the family functions. you know.
Yeah, that's interesting. You've been to court for HR reasons. Tell
That's
us
part
more
of the
about
job,
it.
unfortunately.
Tell us
No,
more
it's
about it.
just,
Are you getting hated now for people who are losing their jobs because they've done something wrong in the department?
Let me start off by saying
Or any threats?
the worst thing for me in
Yeah.
this job is that sometimes people have to be suspended.
Yeah.
And also be clear, I don't suspend people.
Okay.
Because that's an administrative function.
Mm.
That's the job of the accounting officer at HOD.
Yeah.
So I have not suspended anyone.
Okay.
And even, an HOD can't be suspended by an MEC. Only the Premier can suspend a head of a department.
Yeah, okay.
Because he employed
Are
them,
you
so he
putting Vish
suspended.
under the bus now?
No. Vish is acting. He's still safe for now.
Okay.
But unfortunately, when we started shining the light on this department,
Yeah.
we found that some people weren't doing their jobs properly. And the suspension is not a guilty finding.
Yeah.
Suspension is saying we need to investigate this.
And give us space so I can
So we
do
need to
that.
we need to have the space, and it also protects you. If I'm suspending you, no one can now later say you interfered.
Of course.
Because you can say, no, I was at home.
Yeah.
Wherever home is. So it's to protect you and to protect the department, so we can do this investigation thoroughly.
Okay.
But what we've also done is, because I hate this idea of people sitting at home for 2 years,
Yeah.
and we pay them. So our turnaround time now is 60 days.
Okay.
From when we start investigation, we suspend someone until we finalize the whole disciplinary process.
All right.
And there were suspensions that we, after investigation, said, nope, there's no case to be made here, and we lifted the suspension and people are back at work.
They're back at
That's
work.
happened more cases actually than finding people guilty.
Brilliant.
But we have to investigate. That's my duty, and I took an oath.
Okay.
I took an affirmation, not an oath, but that is what we are going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Are people unhappy? Yes, of course, people are unhappy. And the one concern for me is I don't want the department to be unstable.
Yeah.
But I've seen some of the allegations that I'm clearing out and I'm coming on a witch hunt and all these type of things. Out of 1,800 officials within the department, 7 was been suspended. It doesn't sound like a witch hunt to me.
Any dismissal yet?
One dismissal.
Only one.
Only one, and that is the director for supply chain management.
That's a manager in it, but
Yes, that's a very senior position.
Senior position, yeah, that's interesting. All right, viewers at home, you're still tuned to Intimacy with Mnikeni Phakathi, and we have MEC Meyer with us. Yeah, please, if you have anything to comment about, share your thoughts, your questions, you can email us at info@podcastaffirmation.com. You can SMS us at 069 110 1948. This is still your KZN number one's podcast and growing podcast in KZN. And we have our first one-on-one interview after the conference with MEC Meyer. MEC Meyer, you've said many times that there is no space or place for construction mafias in KZN and in your space.
Yeah.
How is that going?
So I think it's very important to distinguish between construction mafia and business forums.
Yeah.
Because the two are getting a bit mixed up when we talk about these things. And business forums can be legitimate groups of business people or community groups that has a responsibility to also look after their interest. And then a construction mafia definition is very easy. If you break the law, you're construction mafia. If you come with a gun to one of our building sites, you're construction mafia. So from the start, we said if people have a flag of truce and they want to speak to us as equals, within the confines of the law, we will talk to them. And we've had many successful meetings, including with the Business Forum Federation, the BFF, which is not my best friends. Apparently, BFF does. I thought it stands for my best friends, but they are our good friends now.
Getting better.
And after the meeting, they stood up and they said, "But we condemn the disruption of sites, and we're now working very closely together." But also, what happened is there was a brilliant knock-on effect. We started talking up myself and the Premier against construction mafia in KZN. Then Minister McPherson nationally started speaking up against it. Then we saw the President and the Minister of Police started speaking. And what that did is it empowered communities to say, we don't have to be scared anymore because now government finally has the political will to deal with it. So we suddenly saw contractors will now phone the police if these guys come. Where in the past they'll just negotiate because it was easier. SAPS now shows up and they act firmly. The NPA is now charging people. They're going to court. So that on the one side's happening. But I also firmly believe there are peaceful resolutions to this. I don't want gunfights at sites. We're trying to prevent that. So what we also realized is we left talking to communities way too late. So in the past, the whole process to get a project will start. Then we'll appoint a contractor and we'll tell the contractor, go to the community, get the 30%, get the local labor and all of that, and then we wash our hands as a department. And we created a space for the construction mafia to
And some of these people would claim this 30% without even getting any work done.
They don't even ask for 30% of the work anymore. They just ask for a check. Just write us the 30% of the amount. So what we're doing now is we're creating a directorate inside the department that will be a community liaison directorate. So, because from the start, let's say Health wants us to build a clinic. From when they tell us they want to build a clinic there until we actually start the work, that's easily a year to 2 years of preparation work. At that point already, that community unit will go to the local community there, saying, on that piece of land there, we're going to build a clinic.
Consultation.
We need bricklayers. We need roofers. If you don't have bricklayers and roofers, we'll bring in people to come and train you. Are your businesses registered? If they're not, we bring SARS to you. We'll help you register your business.
That's interesting.
And then we want the community to take ownership of that project.
Yeah.
And we've seen where we've done that, and where other and Prasa does that with the N3. And Prasa hasn't had that many Sunroll, sorry.
Sunroll,
And
yeah.
Sunroll hasn't had that many disruptions because they followed the same model.
Okay.
And it really works.
It works for them.
Because once the community take ownership, then they themselves tell the construction mafia, we don't want you here.
Yeah.
We are working, we are getting the benefit from this.
Now the community is saying, we have ownership of what is happening. We
Yes.
understand, we were consulted and so on.
Because I'm a firm believer, community
Yeah.
needs to benefit from projects.
Yeah.
The law doesn't actually say 30%. That changed a few years back
Yeah.
because it depends from project to project. Some projects are very specialized, for instance. But as much as possible, yes, communities must benefit from a project. That's logical, and that's how it should be.
All right. No, we appreciate it very much. You are a social worker.
Yes.
A master's in theology. Are you applying some of these principles when leading?
Absolutely. Social work, again, teaches you to listen.
Yeah.
Social workers don't talk a lot. We leave that for the psychologists.
Yeah.
Social workers to listen. And it also taught me how to always, and also theology, to always take the human factor into account. I am not an MEC of buildings. I'm an MEC of people.
Yeah.
The people that work for the department, but the people out there. My office in Mayville, I look onto one of the worst informal settlements in eThekwini, which is Cato. And that reminds me, those are the people I serve.
Okay.
And I think social worker was very instrumental in helping put that in me, that I have to always take that human factor in consideration. And that every person that comes to me, that person who's angry, has a history. I don't know what happened to you today. This morning, maybe you had a very bad morning, your wife fought with you. I don't know what happened. So if you're fighting with me today, let me also remember that you are also human and you come with your own history. Theology, I think the biggest thing there that it taught me, I'm not a big churchgoer anymore, but I hear I make relatively good speeches. I think I was taught how to make sermons, so I think I bring my sermons onto the political platform.
So it does
now.
help with your speeches.
Yes.
Okay. Right. No, thank you very much, and we really appreciate your time because you've given in a different taste to government. Your activism, LGBTI community, and so on, has made people realize that it's not about what you are, but what you can bring,
Absolutely.
to communities and in solving their problems. And we appreciate that very much. KZN as a dangerous, you've argued that it is a dangerous place.
Yeah.
Do you see a future where this will end?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody expected the worst in elections of KZN.
Yeah.
I had friends and family saying, come visit us during the election,
Yeah.
and people
Stay
thought
safe.
we're going to have civil war.
Yeah.
The people of KZN have proven that we want peace and prosperity. We are the only province that's peacefully changed government 3 times now. From the apartheid government to an IFP government, to an ANC government, and now to the GP. Peacefully.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm absolutely convinced that KZN has everything we need to be the most prosperous province in the whole country. We'll leave Gauteng and Western Cape behind very, very soon.
All right. Thank you very much.
Don't tell Gogo I said that.
Yeah, he might be in trouble. Thank you very much, Mr. Meyer. It has been a great time. Thank you to our viewers at home. Keep in touch. We enjoy your participation in all the shows that we are running.